Those of you who know who've been on here before know we like to feature a local startup who's doing something amazing in our ecosystem. And we have Joe Lee, who's the founder of PopUp Rhody, which is a fantastic opportunity for small businesses and others looking for space. But I'm going to let Joe tell you about it, and then Matt Puccini will be her moderator.
Hi, my name is Joe. I started PopUp Rhody, and PopUp Rhody is an online marketplace that lets businesses list space for pop-ups, right? So it's just like Airbnb, but rather than listing rooms for rent, businesses list space for pop-ups. So I got the idea for PopUp Rhody a couple years ago at this amazing culinary goods store in Providence called Stock. And every time I went in there, some new and exciting business was popping up, right? Like one day I went in and Rhody Oysters was shucking oysters. And another day, Nitro Coffee was pouring coffee, in this revolving door of new and exciting businesses created this fun, buzzy atmosphere that kept people coming back for more. But pop-ups are hard to do. So the owner of Stock, she'd stay up late at night looking for new businesses that could pop up in her business. Scheduling was a nightmare, so many missed calls, and no one had time for promotion. So that's why I created PopUp Rhody, to make it easier for Rhody businesses with space to connect with Rhody businesses that need space. And I planned to launch PopUp Rhody in March 2020, right when COVID hit. Yeah, and it turns out that pop-ups and pandemics do not go together. But as we emerge from COVID, pop-ups are more relevant than ever. So after a year of Zoom and Grubhub and Amazon, our lives have more permanently moved online. And yet we have a greater appreciation for face-to-face engagements. Pop-ups help businesses conform to a more digitally weighted economy that relies less and less on long-term occupancy, right? Pop-ups let businesses turn underutilized space into a revenue stream, and it lets businesses that don't have square footage take over space without making a long-term commitment, which is important because face-to-face is increasingly about bridging people back to an online space rather than back to a store or office. So if you have office space and your workers are working more at home, you can list your extra space, like a conference room, on PopUp Rhody for others to pop up in. Or if you have empty retail space, or maybe just extra countertop space, you can list it on PopUp Rhody for others to pop up in. Or if you have a restaurant and your kitchen is cooking more for delivery, you can list that front of store space for others to pop it up in for, like an event or a party. And if you have like amazing loft mill space, you can list it for someone to pop up in for a photo shoot or a party. So that's PopUp Rhody. Come on over, list your space, make some money. No countertop too small or space too big.
Thank you, Jolie. Sorry I'm late, folks. A little technical difficulty that happens with this digital world we're in. So I love the story of PopUp Rhody. The shared economy is really exploding in many different directions. What has been your experience in doing your analysis on which pop-up use cases resonate with both sides of the two-sided market, with the people who are looking to rent space and with the renters?
Yeah, so it's interesting. And Mark, this was definitely going through my head as I was listening to your presentation. So it is most definitely more appealing to businesses that aren't traditionally in the real estate market, right? For them, suddenly they've got space, and it's post-COVID. People need to monetize anything that they can. And they don't have long-term business plans that are being disrupted by this kind of post-COVID I don't think I need my office anymore, right? So they can be like, wow, I'm just going to list this on PopUp Rhody. I can generate revenue. I can start making connections. It's just a win-win. Whereas traditional real estate companies are like, wow, I have this great big plan in place. For me, Mark, once getting back to you, it's like, I just feel like I often hit a wall with them, and it was really helpful to listen to you because it's a lot about asking questions and figuring out how to make them more comfortable with this.
So do you feel to get the flywheel started, you need to educate this community on the opportunity that PopUp Rhody presents to them? Or is it something when you have these initial engagements, they understand very quickly?
I feel like people do understand quickly, but in part because just we've all done Airbnb before. But what I would say is, yeah, I mean, actually, people do understand pretty quickly, and it just kind of splits into those two markets. And then there's just like, oh, wow, this is great. I can do this, but my list of to-dos is this. And so the question then becomes, how do you make it jump to the top, right?
So as you explore this new model, are there any other considerations like regulatory considerations that need to be addressed, or education for the renters to make their properties available?
Yeah, and I would say that Rhode Island and Providence are no different than any other state or city, right? Our economy has just shifted radically in a year, and policymaking is not a place where rapid change happens. But I've spoken to a number of officials, and they're actually they get this, and they would like to be drivers of this change rather than barriers.
So what do you see as the initial metrics, traction metrics that you're seeking to achieve in the next, I mean, post-COVID, everything, it's always a curveball with COVID, but coming out of COVID, what metrics are you looking to achieve, let's say, in the next 90 days?
Yeah. So I should probably back up. I just launched the new site, and it's really beautiful. I'm super proud of it. So my first metrics is getting properties space listed on PopUp Rhody. So once again, if you have space, or who knows someone who has space, definitely let me know. I'd love to reach out to them and have a conversation about how this can work for their business. And then it's also about matchmaking. Okay, you've got your space up. I'm perfectly happy at the beginning, right? Just the same way people did when the people who started Airbnb did, right? Like they did a lot of matchmaking, right? You have an empty room. Wow. Okay, let me find someone to go and pop up in that room. I'm happy to do that as well. And then hopefully, right, this just starts happening on its own and creates its own sort of ecosystem of people who want to pop up, people who have space for pop-ups, and then in the retail space, people that like to go to pop-ups.
What in a shared model like an Uber, you have an interesting dynamic of drivers also are customers and vice versa over time. Same thing with Airbnb. Do you see that kind of dynamic playing out in PopUp Rhody as well?
Yeah, and thank you for saying that. It's definitely a swappable marketplace where people can definitely switch positions, right? You might have a loft space for photo shoots, but you might want to pop up in someone's conference rooms where there's worksheets and printers.
So you're focused on Rhode Island, which I think is one of the underrepresented test markets out there. It's a terrific small market for a number of different businesses to do a market test. So I'm always advocating people take a look at Rhode Island for market testing. But what do you see? What is the appeal of Rhode Island as a place to test your model, to build your model, and before you try to take it horizontally across other geos?
So I want to say there's two parts. I have a two-part answer, which I need to do in 3 minutes. So one thing about Rhode Island is that it is a great business. It's this like great petri dish for businesses because it's a small world. Everyone knows each other. It's really easy to connect and kind of make things happen. And it's particularly good for products that are about intra-region commerce, not necessarily about global commerce, right? Rhode Island is a very locally focused economy. So products that are about bringing people in a region together rather than bringing people from Rome to New York City, I feel like those products are really great to test in Rhode Island. And then, just in terms of starting up a business in Rhode Island, you cannot ask for a better place. And it's because we have an amazing infrastructure for startups to lean into for help. And we need it, right? Because there's nothing more lonely than starting a startup. Like that first year, you just have nothing but energy. You can solve any problem. But, 1 year and one pandemic later, like you're burnt and tired, right? So like you need places like Venn Cafe that bring people together and share resources. And I cannot thank the venture mentoring services enough, right? VMS. Everyone I talk to who starts a business, I'm just like, call VMS, call VMS. You have your own like brain trust of really smart people to brainstorm ideas with you. And it's not like, they've got they've made an investment in your business. There isn't that power differential, but at the same time, there's structure to keep the conversation going. So go Rhode Island.
So, Joe, you have always the first check in the box I look for is absolute passion for what you're trying to build. So, when you take that passion forward, where do you see yourself in PopUp Rhody in the next 3 years?
So, yep, I love small businesses. I'm from small business. My parents were in small business, and I know how hard it is. So I'm so thrilled to have PopUp Rhody and an opportunity to provide capacity building for small businesses. And I can't wait to see it take off in Rhode Island, but down the line, right, I can imagine a franchise version of PopUp Rhody. So like PopUp Baltimore, PopUp New Orleans, any region that once again is more locally focused, has a more locally focused economy rather than globally focused.
Well, great answer. And I will just say that personally, I found out about PopUp Rhody. My favorite way is my wife and daughters saw it in Warren before I ever met you. So it's always great to get that external feedback from the community before I even meet the entrepreneur. So thank you so much for your answers. It's pretty inspirational to get this started.
And Matt, thank you for being just the most amazing mentor. Like I'm so appreciative.
Oh, shucks.
And Toonie and Amy and SEG, everyone else in the PopUp and the Rhode Island.
You're such a great poster child, Joe. You really are working what we all worked and continue to work really hard to build, right? It does take a village, Amy. I say that all the time. And our differentiator here in Rhode Island is this amazing supportive infrastructure / ecosystem that we've built and continue to strengthen. And Matt, my only bummer is that I haven't worked with you on a VMS team yet.
Well, new crop is coming up. You never know.
I know. You know what? I'm one of the first mentors, and I have so many teams, and kind of have a lot on my plate. Amy, right? Amy's like, no more.
That's my challenge too.
So it's hard for me to sign up for new ones. But I love that you're Joe's, and Joe, thank you for just taking advantage of it and being passionate, and continuing to inspire all of us.
Thanks. Well, thank you, Toonie.